So why did we end up buying an E46 3 Series Coupe, and why do we still have it? And I say why do we still have it because it's very unusual for cars to hang around too long in this household, tend to get bored quite quickly and want to try something else. This car's been around now for 3 years plus, maybe even up to 4 years, practically unheard of in this household. So the reason it stayed around is different to the reason that we bought it. The reason we bought it was that we were doing work in bits of West Yorkshire where you might be conscious of what car you were leaving on the street and what condition it might be in when you got back. And so we needed something that was fairly cost effective so that we weren't too worried about leaving the car, but equally we wanted something nice because we didn't want to drive around in just some old heap. So this car was available locally, side of the road job, advert in the window, poorly written, and I was struck by the red paint, I've got to be honest. Imola red just looks amazing on an E46, particularly on a coupe, and it was good value for money. At 81,000 miles, it was super low, well, not super low, but it was very low mileage for one of these. These are very usable daily drivers, so an awful lot of them have done mega miles because people have used them because they're so well engineered. This one, say at 81,000 miles, was considered low. The engine's absolutely bulletproof, the gearboxes are good, so huge amounts of life left. And for the money that was being asked, it was hard to ignore. Wasn't quite sure that the seller knew what they had. Whilst the service history or the early service history had gone walkies, there was stuff, receipts and invoices from the more recent times, but you could just tell that it was a good car. But parked at the side of the road as it was dirty, not looking quite its best. The weather at the time was absolutely horrific. The seller kept on referring to it as an old car, which I suppose in many respects it is, but it's also a modern classic car. But he was viewing it through the lens of its age rather than the life left in the car, which enabled me to get a pretty good deal on it. But what really clinched the deal was when I drove the car. I drove it down the road, and immediately I could tell how tight the car was, how healthy it was, how much life was left in it. And there were areas that I could improve, such as the paintwork and the interior, so I could add some value to the car and also get the sense of satisfaction from improving it. We used it mainly for motorway journeys, motorway trips to start with. It continues to do the supermarket trip of a weekend often, but really it was bought to cruise the motorways. And I'll do a driving impression video in the not too distant future, and I'll tell you what the car's like to drive, and I'll compare it to an SE based car for you as well. But it does the motorway thing very, very well. But what it did do was sort of creep up on us. We started to take the car or choose to take the car for drives that the car wasn't bought for. And before we knew it, we'd both grown very fond of it. My better half in particular will always grab the keys to the 3 Series. Doesn't matter what else is on the driveway, what else I'm tinkering and playing with, she'll just automatically jump for the 3 Series, which tells you quite a lot, because she's not really a car person and she's not particularly badge conscious, but the combination of all the various benefits of this car and its attributes means that, yeah, she feels very comfortable in it. So here we are 3 to 4 years later, the car's still here. We've added another 20-odd thousand miles to the odometer. Would have been much more were it not for COVID and the lockdown, where the car really didn't go anywhere for the thick end of a year to a year and a half, really. And certainly our motorway mileage has dropped considerably since COVID and the lockdown. and the car's still here. We're at a point where we don't see the point in selling it. I don't see what else you could go out and buy in the market that would necessarily replace this car. And frankly, it's such a blinder of an example. I'm loath to pass it on to somebody else. And if you were to buy another car, you run the Russian roulette of, have you got the Friday afternoon car? We know this car intimately. We know how good this car is. It's an absolute jewel. And so, yeah, we continue to use it. And actually, I don't see us selling it in the foreseeable future. Costs over the years of ownership, very reasonable. We'll park road tax and insurance. That is what it is. Petrol-wise, the car regularly does 35 to sort of 40 miles per gallon-ish on the motorway if you get a really clean run. We average, we always tend to average over 30 miles per gallon, so usually somewhere between 30 and 34 tends to be our average, which I think for the performance and the style of car is very reasonable. The car's never thrown a big wobbler. We've had to replace things like the driver's window regulator, which went all cracky and made horrible sounds. So that was replaced, a repair that cost this side of £100. We replaced the original halogen headlight bulbs with a high intensity with a HID kit, which has vastly improved the headlights and made driving at night much more pleasurable. We've replaced some of the interior trim, but that was more through preference. So the dash and gear lever areas on the car at the minute are running high gloss black piano trim. That's second-hand trim I bought off eBay. I've also got the armrest areas to replace at some point, but that means removing the door cards, which means probably breaking some clips and potentially introducing some rattles into the interior, which the car currently doesn't have, so haven't done that. What else has it done? Not routine servicing, really. Oh, there was a bit of an oil leak on the rocker cover gasket, so it has had a new rocker cover gasket fitted just through some seeping, and then regular tyre changes. It does seem to be a bit hungry on rear tyres, and they're 255s, 3518, so it's a reasonable amount of rubber to have to change, and we're getting through rear tyres, I would say, every 8,000 miles, which, given how gently we drive the car, does seem pretty excessive, but there you go. The garage have had a look at the car and say that the geometry is all good and the suspension components are good. We have had to replace one of the springs, which was corroded. One of the rear suspension coils snapped, actually. It was more than corroded. It snapped ahead of an MOT. So as a precaution, we had both rear springs replaced with good quality non-OEM manufacturer bits. They were about £150 for the two springs, which I didn't think was too bad. And yeah, I think that from a repair perspective, I think that's about it. So not bad going for a car of its vintage and the fact that we've been putting the miles on. The biggest ownership surprise has been how practical the car is. There's plenty of legroom in the back for adults, so you can fit two adults in the back of the car quite easily. But it's the fact that you could do all sorts with the car. I've had, the back seats fold, so that's an important point to make, and I've therefore had 2 metre lengths of wood from the DIY store in the back of the car. I've had 4 full-size wheels and tyres for one of these, 18-inch wheels and tyres in the back. I've had that on several occasions. Easy peasy to fit those in. It's been to the builder's yard and had cement and all sorts in it. So yeah, it's actually very, very practical day to day. Annoyances are few and far between. It does like to drink a bit of oil, although I've said that now when I change the oil last, because I do my own home oil changes, basic servicing, just so I know it's been done correctly and that the correct oils, etc., have gone into the car, so I know what brands and products have gone in. I did up the viscosity of the oil, so the car's currently running 5W40 Castrol Magnatec oil, and since fitting the 5W40, an upgrade from the original 5W30, that extra thickness from 30 to 40 when the engine's hot has reduced the oil consumption. Our car wasn't bad, it was nowhere near where BMW state these cars could be before there's an oil issue. They say around 620 miles per litre of oil is the tipping point where you've probably got a problem. We're nowhere near that, absolutely nowhere near that. But we do keep a litre of oil in the boot area just for general top-ups. Since fitting the 5W40, I've not had to top the oil up at all. Having said that, we are going to use the car in a couple of days for a decent motorway journey. I'll post up a video of that very soon, and I'll check the oil before we go. I'll check it when we get back, and we'll see what the oil consumption's like. But yeah, that's probably about the only niggle with the car. So if that's the main niggle with the car, what about the key benefit, the main benefit? I would say it's the car's reliability. I would trust this car to get us absolutely anywhere, any distance we wanted to go. It's a car you jump into regardless of the journey and just not fret at all about whether the car would make it or whether it's going to throw any curveballs your way. And if you think that the car's just about to celebrate its 20th birthday, I think that's pretty good going. Would I recommend an E46? Absolutely, I would. I'm not suggesting the car's perfect. When we get in some of the driving videos, etc., I'll give you a very balanced appraisal of what it's like. But for the money, they are, I think, pretty much unbeatable. And I suppose while we're talking about money, they're also on the up. I do some freelance writing for a car magazine. I wrote an article a little while ago about the E46 and just said, look, the values of these cars are going up, and that's proven to be. We're at a point now where low mileage facelift M Sport coupes like ours, and in particular the 330 CI models, ours is a 325 CI, are nudging the £10,000 bracket, and they're no doubt being pulled up by E46 M3 values, which have shot through the roof in recent years. But there's no doubt E46s are on the rise. So if you fancy one, I'd say now's a pretty good time to get on the train. So there it is. There's a walk around of our daily driver, an E46 3 Series Coupe. Got to say, it's been an absolutely fantastic car. It was bought for a fairly specific work reason. We weren't expecting it to be here for much longer than maybe 12 months, and 3 to 4 years later, here we are. It's been an absolutely fantastic car, a real diamond of an example, and we continue to enjoy it, which after this length of time speaks volumes. In the next video, we'll get out onto the road. I'll tell you what the car's like to drive. I'll give you a warts and all honest review of that. So if you're thinking of buying an E46 at some point, hopefully that will be of interest and use to you. But in the meanwhile, I'll thank you for watching this video and look forward to putting the driving video up soon. Thanks for watching.